Hi guys, so I am back again and we are going into the next chapter of this book, which is by Gerald G Jampolskyj, which is called Goodbye to Guilt. And we are on the chapter where we talk about Gerald's perception of what he used to believe life was about before he actually started following the lessons in this book. So his perception in life was that the world was out to get him and it was going to do him in. His parents had actually always urged him to do things no matter what he did in life, and this continued into his adult life, where he was continued to hurry through life. It was not clear whether he was running away from something or towards something. So I can actually relate to this, where I used to throw myself into coaching, into qualifications, so going doing leadership qualifications, doing management qualifications, to try to be the best person I could be at the job I was doing, even though deep down I knew the job, what I was doing, didn't feel like the right kind of job for me. But I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. So running into it, if that makes sense. I was running into it to make it better. But then when I was faced with confrontation, then I would run away from it. So I would be literally, because I couldn't deal with the confrontation, so it'd be the fear of that. So I literally would remove myself from that environment. So when he looked back in his life, he was convinced that he spent most of his life battling with himself, or was running away from himself. When he was a child, he was clumsy, hyperactive, and he had tremendous problems with learning to read and write. He was made to feel a loser by his teachers and his parents. His world was he could never do anything right, and the love he received depended on how he performed. Not being right to him meant he was unlovable, and that it was unlikely that he would ever be loved. During this time, he discovered that he could make others right by becoming more guilty. The more guilty, the more they liked him. This made him become a storehouse of guilt. He believed he was a second-class citizen, so he concentrated on being a first-class pessimist. He felt like he could control that. He decided to fulfil the negative expectations of others, expectations that others had of him, so that it made them right, because he believed he could not succeed in people loving him. He experienced the world as a precarious place where he may be attacked at any moment. His fearful child complex remained with him in adulthood. During his adult life, he was fearful of being attacked, rejected, and unloved. How many people can relate to this? I know I can. He developed lots of different fears: fear of death, fear of life, fear of love, and fear of having fun. He learnt ways to hide his true feelings, which he called a multitude of costumes. These costumes included preventing people from getting close to him, controlling others. He said he was afraid he would be destroyed if he removed his mask and show people who he really was. It wasn't until, just hold on a minute, he got very competitive, that's the one. He became very competitive, wanting to get more and more. So this gentleman became a doctor, so he obviously threw himself into the qualifications and trying to prove to himself that he could do it. But even though he was doing all these great things, he was actually still hurting inside, but he was living in the fear of losing what he already had. He hung on, trying to find moments of pleasure to clear this insecurity and this pain. He was fearing death and wishing it would come and rescue him. During this time, he thought he was the only one feeling the way he did. He became convinced that everyone is familiar with all these emotions to some degree. So in the end, he realised that other people did feel these same emotions. What he was describing was a world based on fear and guilt. So in the world, he believes that sooner or later, we all believe that sooner or later, bad things are bound to happen to us. Our unhappy experiences from the past will repeat themselves in the future. It's a world which relationships are often troubled and short-lived. And the way we handle disharmony in relationships is we get out of them. We believed in the world that there is judgment, unforgiveness and punishment, and we are in a world where others are seen as guilty and responsible for our problems. So the problems we've got, we put the blame on other people. It believes the world is unstable, which is terminally ill, and it's due to lack of love, which makes you feel helpless. When he believed this, it seemed very real to him, and he had no other way of looking at the life. It wasn't until he started on his spiritual pathway that there are two ways of looking at things, and each requires a totally different belief system. These belief or thought systems are based on different ways of looking at cause and effect, truth and illusion, life and death. The commonly shared thought pattern of the world is through the ego. We're based on perceiving a world of separation, guilt, fear, attack and unhealed relationships. It's a world of misperception. The opposite of this belief system is a thought system of love. The thought system of love is based on perceiving a world of unity, a world of unconditional love, peace and happiness, and a world where relationships are healed. It is a world based on God's love, a world in which perception has been corrected through forgiveness. And it goes on to say, at the superficial level of awareness, there may be great temptation for the majority of us to think that the belief system of love is a simplistic pipe dream. In contrast, the ego's belief system seems to be what the real world we live in is all about. Most of us would be threatened by any suggestions that we would be better off if we changed our beliefs, and we would actively resist doing so. So what we're going to do then, he says, to take a few minutes to let go of our thoughts. We're going to let go of our thoughts. You knew all your thoughts about and what is real and what is not, and who you are and what you're doing here. You're going to have the values you're going to hold dear to your heart, whether they be good or bad. You're going to let them all go, and you're just going to sit. We're going to now sit for a couple of minutes and just take all them thoughts away for a minute. Okay, so will you now have the willingness and open-mindedness not necessarily to believe, but just to consider another possibility? That perhaps the way we look at life and the world is simply to dream that we have invented in order to shut out the memory of love and a loving God. So for the ego really believes that it can get and keep by making us feel guilty. So with that thought, I'm going to leave you, and tomorrow I will be doing the next chapter. So have a lovely day and stay safe.